Straight ahead, all on the line. Texas House Speaker Dade Phelan is among the Republican incumbents fighting to stay in office in Tuesday's primary runoff election. Why there could be fallout all across the state if he loses. Political rematch. State Representative Stephanie Klick and challenger David Lowe are competing for a Texas House seat in Tarrant County again. They're both anti-abortion, but they tell us why they have differences on this issue. Abortion in the headlines, why the Texas Medical Board's latest attempt to clarify when the procedure should be performed remains under scrutiny. Good Sunday morning to you. I'm Jack Fink. Get your fix for Texas politics. Eye on Politics starts now. Hello and welcome on this Memorial Day weekend. In just 2 days, Texans will go to the polls in the long-awaited primary runoff election. We are closely watching a number of hotly contested races. Some are for open seats. The Republican runoff for the 12th Congressional District in parts of Fort Worth, Tarrant, and Parker counties. The Republican runoff for the 30th District State Senate seat in parts of Frisco, Denton, and more rural areas. And State House District 97 in parts of Fort Worth, Benbrook, and Crowley. Some fights are against well-funded Republicans in the Texas House who have political targets on their backs and whose political careers are now hanging in the balance. Some of those incumbents are going it alone without the help of any of the state's current top Republican leaders. One person whose race stands out is Texas House Speaker Dade Phelan. He's battling challenger David Covey, and this contest is now the state's most expensive House race in history, with $5.7 million spent according to Ad Impact Politics. Phelan could become the first speaker in Texas House in decades to lose a primary, and there are a variety of Republican heavyweights hoping to unseat him. They include Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick, who gave Covey $100,000, Attorney General Ken Paxton, and former president and presumed GOP presidential nominee Donald Trump. He bashed Phelan during his speech at the NRA convention in Dallas last weekend.
And David is leading very substantially an absolutely terrible Speaker of the House.
Last week, Phelan held a campaign rally featuring former Governor Rick Perry.
He is your voice. He is a leader of this area.
The two candidates are trying to get their supporters to the polls, and turnout on a percentage basis in early voting is higher in this district than the rest of the state. If Phelan loses, it could change how the Texas House is run and potentially what legislation passes. It would also be a big deal in Southeast Texas because Phelan is a historic name there. I discussed both elements with Jeremy Wallace, who covers politics at the Texas Capitol for the Houston Chronicle and San Antonio Express News.
The implications of this are immense. You know, if he loses this seat, what this means for Southeast Texas, what it means for the entire Texas legislature, and what it means for future legislation, all hangs in the balance. It's really a significant problem here for Dade Phelan and his supporters. You know, you have to go over 50 years since we've had a leadership shakeup like this. And what this does is, people have to understand that this goes beyond just okay, so who's going to be the leader of the House? What this does is it changes who sets up all the committee chairmen, in the Texas legislature. You're talking about 43 different committees who could have new leaders, directing legislation. That means a whole new list of issues for lobbyists to kind of deal with. There's a lot going on here that they're going to have to really, this has so much impact potentially.
And it was interesting because I spoke with at least one conservative House member in our area, North Texas, and he said, look, the House is run right now, it's member-centric. The speaker really doesn't put his thumb on an issue. If there is a change, that could happen, right? Where you have a much more involved speaker in the day-to-day bills and how they progress. Isn't that right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's one of the things that, the character of who the speaker is significant, right? If this, if you get an all Republican based leader, and you get somebody who wants to rule kind of with an iron fist, you could have that. Imagine the House acting more like the Senate. And what I mean by that is Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick, who runs the Senate, nothing happens without his approval. Like everything has to go through him. And we could have a situation where the next leader of the Texas House is also like that.
And I wanted to ask you about Dade Phelan himself. The Phelan name in Beaumont and in Southeast Texas is historic. Will that be able to rescue him this time around?
Well, it's going to have to be, right? What Dade Phelan has, and really the Phelan name they have this ability to say, look, Beaumont is almost always shut out of statewide politics. We don't have the control and the power. We don't have, there aren't a lot of Beaumont Republicans and or Democrats who have led either the Senate or the House or the governor's office. And so here they actually have a major influential person in the Texas legislature. And if Dade Phelan goes down, that goes away.
Has he made that case?
Yeah, absolutely. You can see he's really been pushing that. He's been really working on the chamber type Republicans, really trying to get them out to vote. The one thing we do know is look, it's a runoff election. The turnout's going to be small. So they know there's less than 30,000 people who will decide this. They've got to make sure they're on the doorsteps of their people over and over again.
The battle for Speaker Phelan's seat highlights the fact that the Texas House districts are in play in the Republican primaries this year like rarely seen before. Governor Abbott has targeted Republican incumbents who voted against his school choice or voucher bill. This past week, the governor crisscrossed the state to get out the vote for the candidates he is backing. He was campaigning in North Texas 4 out of 5 days. Governor Abbott's campaign tells me they're spending more than $3 million on the runoff elections, helping their candidates run their campaigns. That's after spending $6 million for the March 5th primary. And Attorney General Ken Paxton has also campaigned for some of the same Republican challengers as the governor. But he has targeted the House Republican incumbents who voted to impeach him. Jeremy Wallace, the political reporter from Houston, says there is a big turnover among Texas House Republicans, and that could have a big impact in other ways at the Capitol.
I think one of the big winners in this is going to be both potentially Governor Abbott and Dan Patrick, the lieutenant governor. Both of them will have a chance to assert their dominance kind of over this new legislative arm, essentially. It's everything about the Texas House could be different.
Coming up a little later, why the Texas Medical Board's latest attempt to clarify when the procedure should be performed remains under scrutiny. But next, how 2 candidates vying for Texas House District 91 in Tarrant County are sparring over abortion. Eye on Politics. We'll be back in a moment. Welcome back to Eye on Politics. One key Texas House race that we didn't highlight before is the Republican primary runoff for District 91, which includes North Richland Hills, Watauga, and Haltom City. It's between incumbent Representative Stephanie Klick and challenger David Lowe. It's a rematch from 2 years ago when Klick won by less than 800 votes. Only 9,000 people voted back then. We interviewed both candidates, and they have sparred over abortion. I asked Representative Klick why voters should select her over Lowe.
I'm a conservative with a proven track record. I've accomplished big bills that have made a difference in this state. I've been very involved in passing pro-life legislation, working on border security. I was the joint author on the bill that banned gender modification of kids.
And what are your proudest accomplishments?
Probably a number of the life bills. Those are difficult bills to pass.
And what are the major differences between you and your opponent?
I would say results over rhetoric. He's got rhetoric, I've got results and a track record of success.
And what do you mean by that, as far as rhetoric?
Well, he talks a good game, but he doesn't have a record. He has not been a longtime resident of our community. I've been a lifelong resident of the community and have relationships with folks in the community. When they have an issue with state government, they come to me and ask me to file legislation to fix that.
he has criticized your record when it comes to just your conservative bona fides, your pro-life chops, if you will. What's your response to that?
My response is that's ludicrous. We have one of the most strong abortion bills in the country. We have the heartbeat bill, the trigger bill. The legislation he prefers would give the death penalty to women who've had an abortion. I don't support that. I believe we have ended abortion here in Texas, and no women have been given the death penalty.
And you're referring to his support for equal rights for the unborn?
The equal protection of the unborn, that's code for death penalty for women. Women would be charged with a capital offense. The choices there are either life in prison or the death penalty, even for minors.
And you don't support that?
I do not support that.
If you're reelected, what are your top 3 priorities?
Top 3 priorities this next legislative session when we go in, we're going to have yet again another record surplus. I've already been visiting with the governor about increasing the amount of property tax relief that we would have for the citizens in Texas. There is also a hot topic that is brewing right now, has to do with procurement for some of the Medicaid contracts. There are a lot of concerns, and I would like to be one of the ones in the room to help navigate that going into next legislative session. I have a healthcare background. Very few members of the legislature do.
You spoke before about property tax relief. There is some discussion now, there was some last session as well, but about eliminating the maintenance and operation portion of the school tax. Is that something you support? And if so, how soon? And if so, how would you replace the revenue that would be needed to fund schools and to fund state government?
I would support eliminating the maintenance and operation portion. And for taxpayers of school taxes, that's the lion's share of it. And it would be replaced with state revenue. I do believe that we can do that. It's going to have to be a gradual process.
How soon, as far as gradual, do you think? I mean, are we talking decades?
I don't think it would take decades. I think that it could potentially be done in 4 to 6 years.
Let's talk about your vote to impeach Ken Paxton. It's an issue, obviously, in your race. Given the fact that the state Senate cleared the Attorney General of all the articles of impeachment, would you vote the same way?
I believe that no one's above the law. And the vote that I took was to send the matter to the Senate for trial. The first vote that the Senate took when they received the articles of impeachment was whether or not there was sufficient evidence to proceed to trial. They agreed and proceeded to trial.
Now we hear from David Lowe. I asked him why voters should select him over Representative Klick.
People want change. Remember, CPAC ranked us the 26th most conservative state in the country, and we've had the majority for 2 decades. Republican voters want Republicans to lead Texas.
And so, what do you want to see change specifically that isn't being done?
Well, I want the border secured, right? No more of this incrementalism. We need to shut down the border, stop the invasion. Elections. We need to make elections more secure. Half the country doesn't support or believe our election process is safe and secure. Property tax appraisals, right? They're out of control. You should not have to go to the government with evidence. They are raising our property tax appraisals, and the burden should not be on the taxpayer.
And what are the major differences in this race between you and your opponent?
Me, as a military veteran, I worked also in law enforcement in the military side and on the civilian side. I have leadership skills, leading troops in combat. I believe that we need change. Okay, that's what this whole election is about, and I offer that change. My opponent is a multi-year career politician who has raised over $4 million for a job that pays $600 a month, right? We need normal, everyday folks to lead Texas and make Texas conservative again.
I've seen where you've criticized Representative Klick. Is she not strong enough on abortion?
What I support is the Republican Party of Texas platform on abortion, which is the same laws that protect you and me should protect everybody else, to include preborn children.
Which means what exactly?
What does it mean? It means the same laws that protect you and me. You know, the 14th Amendment, it supports everybody. Everybody is equal protection under the law, and I believe that should protect unborn children too. Remember.
Well, give me some specifics on that. I mean, are you talking about murder? You know, whether it's the mother or a doctor? I mean, should they be charged with murder? Is that what you're saying?
That would be up to the courts if anything goes forward. But you know what? You can't blame me as a Republican for supporting our Republican Party of Texas platform.
When I spoke with Representative Klick, she said that the equal protection is code for charging a mom, a doctor with murder.
Yeah, she says a lot of stuff.
Is that not it right?
So what I am saying is, because based on what you just quoted my opponent, she doesn't support the Republican Party of Texas platform on equal protection.
There's a lot of discussion right now as to eliminating the M&O portion of the school property tax.
Yes.
Is that something you support? And if so, how quickly would you like to see that implemented? And what would be your alternative funding sources to fund state government and then fund public schools?
Yes, I support the complete elimination of property taxes, starting with the M&O taxes, right? There are many plans. Many states have had multiple plans ranging from 7 to 10 years. It would be a phase out. That's really what it is. You know, we had a $33 billion surplus, for example, in 2023. We save up those surpluses instead of giving them back to corporations. We buy down the M&O taxes as we create a new funding source. Now, do I have the exact specifics? No, because I've read many plans. Keep in mind that we need to have public hearings.
I do want to ask you what has come up in the course of this campaign about the porn sites,
okay,
the domains that you purchased. Talk to me a little bit about that.
So first of all, I am sorry that I bought them. I bought them, say, 15 years ago, right? I bought a whole bunch of them. Most of them were multi-level marketing, you know, vitamins, other things like that. A few of them were inappropriate. Should I have bought them? Absolutely not. It's a life lesson that I'm going to teach my children. If you do something stupid when you're in your 20s, it could come back and bite you in the butt.
Both full interviews are on our website, cbsnewstexas.com. Go to the Eye on Politics section. Coming up, abortion is back in the headlines. The Texas Medical Board is being criticized once again for not making it easier for doctors to know when they should and shouldn't perform the procedure. Eye on Politics. We'll be right back. Abortion is back in the headlines in Texas. The Texas Medical Board held a hearing on potential new rules aimed at clearing up confusion by doctors on when they can perform the procedure legally. But OBGYNs and some of their patients are still unhappy. Sarah Jenkins has this week's brief.
Doctors say they need more precise guidelines because the ones presented at last week's medical board hearing don't reduce fear and misunderstanding surrounding potentially violating the law that could result in a $100,000 fine or life in prison. The board countered that every specific circumstance cannot be identified, therefore the law cannot be narrowly defined by a pigeonholed set of criteria. Kate Cox, the Dallas mom who left the state to have an abortion after a lethal fetal anomaly diagnosis, testified that this guidance would not have helped her doctors.
Some say it's a matter of semantics, of which words a physician must use. But I can see that the problem runs much deeper. We should not force pregnant Texans to get sicker, to wait for an inevitable miscarriage and go through childbirth to deliver a baby that has died or will certainly die. It is medically reasonable to give mothers and families the best chance at building their families, which may include terminating a non-viable pregnancy so they can have a chance at a viable one. I needed that chance.
The board will reconvene in June and will then decide whether to present the current guidelines for vote or begin the public comment process with updated guidance.
Before we go, I know it's political season, but there is a different kind of trash talking going on. The Dallas Mavericks and Dallas Stars are hoping to win the NBA and NHL championships. Dallas Mayor Eric Johnson and Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Fry have a friendly wager going as the Mavs and Minnesota Timberwolves compete in the Western Conference Finals. The mayors are each offering chocolate to the winner. And Texas Governor Greg Abbott has a friendly wager with Alberta, Canada Premier Danielle Smith as the Stars face the Edmonton Oilers in the Western Conference Finals. The big prize for this, a ribeye. I'm getting hungry just thinking about it. Let's go Stars, let's go Mavs. That's all for Eye on Politics this week. I'm Jack Fink. I am listening and we are listening at CBS News Texas. Thanks for watching. I'll see you again next week. And I hope you have a meaningful Memorial Day weekend as we pay tribute to our fallen service members.